Hello, Algebra 2, and welcome to Lesson 11.2. We're going to talk about statistics, studies, and sampling. There's going to be a lot of definitions and things like that that are associated with uh, collecting data, how we collected, all the different methods of collecting data if we wanted to make some sort of inference about a particular situation. All right, so in this lesson, we're looking at four different types of studies. We're looking at an experiment, a sample survey, and uh, an observational study, and a meta-analysis. Um, so a sample survey as qualifies as oh no, we're a sample survey. Interesting. This also sample survey is known as um, a census. So with an experiment, it's important to recognize, right? If you need to recognize the difference between an experiment and an observational study, you notice that in this one, some sort of treatment is imposed, right? You're trying to influence the outcome. With a sample survey, this is also right because it's every member. Um, oh, it's not in this case. Sorry. Um, hmm. Anyhow, these two are extremely similar. In AP Stat, we just call each of these an observational study, right? So if you were collecting data about people but weren't trying to influence the outcome, right? That's an observational study. In this case, I guess they're separating it out to a subset of that would be a sample survey um, in which you're gathering information. All right, so let's identify which type of study we have here in each of these examples. All right, you want to see how babies interact with a toy snake. So you observe 10 different babies that are given a toy snake to play with, right? We need to ask ourselves the question, was there any attempt to influence the outcome here, right? Did they try a red snake and see if babies reacted different to a red snake or a black snake, right? No, they just gave babies a snake, a toy snake, and looked at their and just observed their interactions, right? This is then an observational study. All right, if you want to see which coffee has the best coffee, so you get you get some from three different coffee shops, and have your friends sample each one and rate the taste. So this one is going to be a sample survey. All right, so one sampling method is a simple random sample. This is it's supposed to be a simple random sample. Um, I don't know what Savas thinks, but anyhow, this is also really most commonly referred to as an SRS. Right, so then rather than writing simple random sample over and over and over again, we'll refer to that as an SRS. And the idea behind that is that each person in the population has the same likelihood of being sampled. So the way that we create a simple random sample is through a process of randomization. So what I will do is if I was going to collect a simple random sample, I would, uh, so say I wanted to sample 5 of you from this class, right? I would give you all a number. I believe there are about 25 of you in here. And well, not currently, but normally. Um, and I would give each of you a number 1 through 25. And then I would use some sort of random number generator to generate numbers 1 through 25 randomly until I had chosen 5 of you, right? I would choose 5 numbers and I would select the people that corresponded to those numbers. That's an example of a simple random sample. You could also put names in a hat and randomly choose them. The idea is that when you have all those names in a hat, each person has the same probability of being chosen. And that's what makes it a simple random sample. In here, you'll see that there are a couple more definitions. We've got stratified sampling, cluster sampling, systematic sampling, convenient sampling, and self-selection, which is also, anyways, self-selected sampling. And this is normally called a voluntary. So when if you take stat in a college course, you're going to see this called a voluntary response sample. All right, we have all of those definitions over here. So cluster sample. The example that I like to use, like there are a couple of examples that I like to use for a cluster sample, right? What if I wanted to get some data about students here at Cleveland High School, right? But it might be too much trouble to select individuals. So what I might do is actually randomly select classrooms and get data from everyone in the classroom. Those classrooms would be a cluster sample, right? So if I'm not selecting individuals, I'm selecting a group randomly, we're going to call that a cluster sample. In a systematic sample, what we would be doing is, this is very common on like production lines or things like that. They want to see maybe Coca-Cola is filling bottles of Coke to be distributed. And, you know, the machine's not perfect. So they want to make sure that those bottles aren't getting underfilled or overfilled. So what they might do is maybe select every 50th bottle on the production line and see how many ounces of fluid are in that in order to see if those bottles are being underfilled or overfilled in some sort of period of time. So that's an idea of a systematic sample. In a convenience sample, one might just stand in some place and collect some data, right? So when you encounter those people that you know, want you to fill out a survey real quick as you're coming out of a store or something like that, those people are collecting a convenience sample. Those are usually highly biased because you're really only getting a small group of the population, right? For instance, in this example, this person wants to know if people want to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and is standing outside of Whole Foods. What do you think? Do you think that so those responses are probably going to be biased in the direction of favoring reducing greenhouse gases because this person's out in front of Whole Foods, right? They're not getting a representative portion of the population. They're just getting people from Whole Foods. So that's why convenience samples are normally highly biased. Another, this self-selected, or as I like to call it, a voluntary response sample, is usually also highly biased, right? Because you're asking people to volunteer information. For instance, maybe you have received something online, like an online survey, and they wanted to know your opinion about something, right? Say it was something that was, you know, controversial, like gun control, right? If you don't really care Like if it's not an issue that that I can't think of the word. If it's not an issue that you really care about, let's just leave it at that. You're probably not going to respond. You're going to be like, nah, I'm not going to answer this survey, right? But if it's something that you feel extremely strongly about, you're going to answer the survey. And that's why these self-selected or voluntary response samples are extremely biased, because you normally get opinions of people who feel strongly in one direction or the other. You're missing the part of the population um, that maybe hasn't thought about it very much or doesn't feel strongly about that particular topic. So we're just gonna put the answers. All right. So what are each of these different kinds of samples? Uh, you ask your family some survey questions, right? That's a convenient sample. You didn't go out and try to get a representative uh, sample from the population, right? You just asked your family. So you're probably going to get some bias in there, right? If your parents are teachers, maybe they would not feel good about this, or maybe they would. You know what I mean? If your parents are, I don't know, construction workers or stuff like that, right? They might be like, it's all right, you know, not much of an opinion. You know, when I, yeah, yes. All right, so a number of hospitals around the country were randomly chosen. Within each hospital, all of the nurses were chosen. So, right, this is a cluster sample because they weren't randomly selecting individuals, right? But groups of individuals are being sampled, right? So it's a convenient sample or cluster sample because uh, groups of individuals, groups are selected, not individuals. All right, so I've been using this word bias throughout this lesson, right? And it's when you're overestimating or underestimating a parameter, right? So I like the example of the person that was getting information about reducing greenhouse gases who is standing out in front of Whole Foods, right? That's probably going to be biased towards people wanting to reduce greenhouse gas emissions because uh, the demographic at Whole Foods is normally people that are environmentally conscious, um, maybe even you know, environmental advocates and things like that, right? That would go to Whole Foods. If you went and asked the same question out in front of Walmart, you would probably get opinions that are maybe not as favorable towards reducing greenhouse gases. And that's an example of bias. So yeah, the bias can come from just the way that you took the sample, or if you ask a question in such a way that it kind of leans people towards a decision, you can also introduce bias in that way as well. So let's see if there's bias present in this question. So a soft drink company calls 500 people at random and asks, "Isn't it true that our product is better than our rival's product?" Uh, so this right here, right? Right, we've introduced some language that already says, "Hey, it's better," right? A better way to frame this question would be, which product do you like more, or which product are you more likely to purchase, right? Then people have an option. You're not stating an opinion about that product in the question about that product. So this is an example of bias for that reason. There was bias introduced in the question. Also, they called 500 people at random. Um, when someone calls you and asks you, hey, do you want to do a survey real quick? How often are you like, yeah, right? I'm like, no, I'm doing stuff, right? So they're going to have a lot of, it's not introducing this, but what's called non-response bias, right? So out of these 500 people that they call, there are going to be a bunch of people that don't respond. You're missing those opinions, right? Um, and again, when you're calling people and asking them to volunteer information, uh, it's probably because they feel strongly about it, right? You're getting different people than you would if you were able to get a survey from everybody. All right, and that's all I have to say about that. So 11.2 is complete. You'll have an assignment coming up for this. Thanks for watching. Hope you're having a great day, and if you're not, I hope it gets better. Stay safe, take care.